Welcome to the video, Install and Configure Kibana. In this video, we'll look at how we install Kibana 6 on our CentOS 7 server. We'll look at the configuration file that we need to update to make sure we connect to Elasticsearch. We'll run Kibana and we'll look at the user interface. Like before, we're going to use the same server that we have Elasticsearch running on to install Kibana. Kibana runs as a Node.js web application. Normally, you probably wouldn't run Kibana on the same server as your Elasticsearch node. But for here, since it's a tutorial or if it's a development environment, there's no harm in it. It's a lightweight application. Again, we'll use an RPM to manually install Kibana. We'll skip the yum package, then we'll get it running. We'll start at the Elastic page that teaches us how to install Kibana using the RPM. We'll skip the yum repo for now and go straight to downloading and installing the RPM manually. Since we're on the same server, we'll run wget to download Kibana 6. Once it's done downloading, we'll run sudo rpm-i, then Kibana. This will install Kibana locally on this server. Then we'll jump over to the Kibana config file, but we'll do that as root. Now that we've upgraded to our root user, we'll find a Kibana config file. It's a kibana.yml. You can see our default server port is 5601. Our default server is localhost. Server base path, those are good for if you're behind a proxy. Server name we'll skip, and then we'll get to the important Elasticsearch URL. In this case, we'll use Elasticsearch that's running on the same host, so it is localhost. You can see Kibana has its own index, so when Kibana runs and saves things, it actually saves it in your Elasticsearch cluster. When we get authentication going later, we'll look at some of these other values. But for now, let's start Kibana. We'll run sudo syscontrol start Kibana. And now we'll run Kibana since we've told systemd to reload. We can verify that Kibana is running. And it is, and we'll look at what port it's listening on with netstat again. And it's listening on port 5601 as we expected. We'll go to a web browser and we'll try to load Kibana. And we know it runs on port 5601. Now we're seeing that the site can't be reached. So we need to check our proxy and firewall. Now if we look here, Kibana is definitely listening on the local host. So let's see if we can get it to listen to every other port. So if we look at this server host value, it defaults to localhost. Let's change this and see if it'll listen on all IPs and host names. We'll restart Kibana. We'll see what netstat does. And now it's changed, and now it's listening on all host names. Now we'll refresh over here. We still can't connect. That must mean something else is going on. Let's check and see if we have a firewall running. Oh, we do. Now let's see if we can stop that. Here we'll turn it off using system control stop firewall-d.service. Now we can see, and now our firewall is not running. We can run back, reload, and we have Kibana. Here you can see the first thing Kibana wants us to do is to configure an index pattern. We don't have any indexes yet because we don't have any data. So now, in the next video, we'll start adding some data. Our next video is called Enable Monitoring via XPack with Elasticsearch and Kibana.